Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew is one of America's most recognizable sodas, known for its bright yellow-green color and high caffeine content. But in parts of Europe and Japan, it's been banned, not because of sugar or caffeine, but because of an ingredient called brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. BVO contains bromine, the same element found in flame retardants. In sodas, it's used to help keep citrus flavoring evenly mixed instead of separating. But long-term consumption has been linked to health concerns, including skin rashes, memory loss, and reproductive issues. Countries like the UK and Japan banned drinks containing BVO decades ago. The US version of Mountain Dew still used it until 2020, when PepsiCo announced it would remove the ingredient entirely. Gatorade. For decades, Gatorade was marketed as the ultimate sports drink, designed to replenish electrolytes and keep athletes performing at their peak. But the original US formula contained the same controversial ingredient found in early Mountain Dew, brominated vegetable oil. European regulators took a strict stance, removing it from all products sold in their markets. In the US, Gatorade reformulated in 2013, replacing BVO with more widely accepted stabilizers like sucrose acetate isobutyrate. The drink stayed on shelves, but only after changing the recipe. Farm-raised salmon. In the United States, much of the salmon sold in supermarkets isn't wild-caught. It's farm-raised. These fish are bred in large pens and fed a controlled diet. But in Australia and New Zealand, certain types of US-style farm-raised salmon are banned from import because of what's in that feed. To give the salmon their signature pink color, many farms use synthetic astaxanthin and other chemical dyes. Wild salmon get their hue naturally by eating krill and shrimp, but farmed salmon would be a pale gray without additives. While the US deems these coloring agents safe, Australia and New Zealand's regulators prohibit the use of synthetic astaxanthin made from petrochemicals in food production. The ban isn't on all salmon, just those raised with the controversial additives. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. Skittles. Skittles have been a staple of American candy aisles for decades, famous for their bright colors and fruit-flavored chew. But in the European Union, the original US formula ran into trouble because of one particular ingredient, titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide has long been used in foods to give them a vibrant, opaque look, making colors pop and whites appear brighter. The problem is that in 2022, the European Food Safety Authority concluded it could no longer be considered safe as a food additive, citing concerns over potential DNA damage from long-term exposure. As a result, the EU banned titanium dioxide in all foods, including Skittles. In the US, the ingredient remained legal until Mars, the parent company of Skittles, announced it would phase it out globally. But for years, anyone in Europe who wanted Skittles had to buy imported versions reformulated without the banned additive, Frosted Flakes. Frosted Flakes is one of the most iconic breakfast cereals in the US, instantly recognizable for its sugar-coated cornflakes and Tony the Tiger's famous slogan. But in parts of Europe, the cereal's original US recipe has faced bans due to certain preservatives, specifically BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, and BHA, butylated hydroxyanisole. Both BHT and BHA are used to extend shelf life by preventing the cereal's oils from going rancid. While the US Food and Drug Administration allows them in small amounts, several European countries have taken a stricter approach, citing research that links high exposure to potential health risks. Because of this, cereals like Frosted Flakes have had to be reformulated in those markets to remove the additives. In the US, the classic version with BHT remained on shelves for decades, meaning the cereal you'd find in an American grocery store wasn't the same one you'd get in certain parts of Europe. Ritz crackers. Ritz crackers have been a staple in American pantries for generations. But in the European Union, the original US recipe ran into trouble due to two key ingredients, partially hydrogenated oils and BHT. Partially hydrogenated oils are a source of trans fats, which have been strongly linked to heart disease and are banned in the EU. BHT is also restricted in several European countries. Because of these rules, Ritz crackers in the EU are made with a reformulated recipe that excludes both ingredients. In the US, until recent FDA crackdowns on trans fats, the original formula remained unchanged for decades. Little Debbie Swiss Roll. The Little Debbie Swiss Roll is one of the most recognizable snack cakes in America, a soft chocolate sponge cake rolled with sweet cream filling and coated in a thin chocolate layer. But in Norway and Austria, the original US version was pulled from shelves because of its artificial coloring. The snack's signature appearance and flavor came in part from Yellow 5 and Red 40, two synthetic dyes that are banned in several European countries due to research linking them to hyperactivity and other behavioral issues in children. While still approved for use in the US, these dyes face far stricter regulation in the EU, where warning labels or outright bans are common. Because of this, European versions of similar snack cakes are reformulated without the dyes. Kraft Mac and cheese. For decades, Kraft Mac and cheese has been a staple in American pantries, famous for its bright orange color and creamy texture. But in its original US formula, it wasn't welcome in the European Union. The issue came down to two artificial dyes, Yellow 5 and Yellow 6. In some European countries, any food containing them must carry warning labels, and in others, the dyes are outright banned. As a result, Kraft reformulated its macaroni and cheese for European markets, using natural color sources like paprika and turmeric instead of synthetic dyes. In the US, the change didn't come until 2015 after years of public pressure. Chlorinated chicken. In the United States, it's standard practice for poultry processors to give chicken carcasses a rinse in a chlorinated water solution after slaughter. The goal is to kill bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli, and the process is approved by US food safety regulators. But in the European Union, this method has been banned since 1997. European officials argue that chemical rinses can mask poor hygiene earlier in the production chain, allowing processors to rely on the chlorine wash instead of maintaining higher cleanliness standards throughout. They also raise concerns over potential long-term health effects, even though the scientific consensus on the safety of chlorine-washed chicken remains debated. As a result, all US-produced chlorinated chicken is prohibited from sale in the EU, and the disagreement has been a major sticking point in trade negotiations between the two regions for decades. Ractopamine pork. Ractopamine is a feed additive used in the United States to promote lean muscle growth in pigs, as well as in some cattle and turkey production. It works by altering the animal's metabolism, helping them build muscle instead of fat in the final weeks before slaughter. While the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved ractopamine as safe for human consumption within certain residue limits, many other countries take a much stricter stance. The European Union, China, Russia, and over 160 nations in total have banned pork from animals fed ractopamine. Their regulators cite concerns over potential cardiovascular and behavioral effects in humans, as well as the welfare of the animals, since high doses have been linked to stress and injury in livestock. This ban has significant trade implications, with countries like China requiring strict certification that imported pork is ractopamine-free, effectively blocking much of U.S. pork from their markets. Hormone-treated beef. In the United States, beef producers have long used synthetic hormone growth promoters, such as trenbolone acetate, zeranol, and melengestrol acetate, to speed up cattle growth and improve feed efficiency. These hormones help animals reach market weight faster, reducing production costs and making beef cheaper for consumers. The European Union, however, has maintained a complete ban on hormone-treated beef since 1989. EU regulators argue that the potential health risks, including possible links to cancer and disruptions to the human endocrine system, outweigh any economic benefit. The dispute over hormone-treated beef has been a major sticking point in US-EU trade relations for decades, leading to World Trade Organization cases and retaliatory tariffs. Despite ongoing negotiations, the EU has stood firm on its zero-tolerance policy. Genetically modified papaya. Genetically modified papaya, most notably the rainbow and sunup varieties, was developed in the 1990s to combat the papaya ring spot virus, a disease that was devastating crops in Hawaii. These GM strains were a breakthrough for farmers, saving the Hawaiian papaya industry from collapse and making up the vast majority of papayas grown in the state today. However, the European Union enforces some of the strictest regulations on genetically modified foods in the world. While GM papaya is considered safe by US regulators, the EU has never approved it for sale due to its GMO restrictions and a precautionary stance on long-term health and environmental impacts. As a result, genetically modified papaya is effectively banned across all EU member states, meaning any papaya imported into Europe must be GMO-free. Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Flamin' Hot Cheetos debuted in 1992 and quickly became one of Frito-Lay's most iconic snack products, thanks to their fiery chili seasoning, bright red color, and heavy dose of MSG. They developed a cult-like following, especially among younger consumers. But their intense popularity also attracted controversy. In parts of the United States, certain school districts removed Flamin' Hot Cheetos from vending machines and cafeterias, citing concerns over their nutritional content, or lack thereof. A single bag packs high sodium, artificial dyes, and flavor enhancers, with little to no protein or fiber. Administrators also pointed to anecdotal reports of students eating multiple bags in one sitting, leading to stomach discomfort, and in some cases, hospital visits. Outside the US, some countries have placed import restrictions or outright bans on snacks, with the same food dye combination and MSG content found in Flamin' Hot Cheetos. While the bans aren't always product-specific, they're often the result of stricter regulations on artificial coloring agents like Red 40 and Yellow 6. Olestra/Olean chips. In the late 1990s, snack giant Frito-Lay introduced a line of fat-free chips using Olestra, a synthetic fat substitute marketed under the brand name Olean. The appeal was obvious. You could eat potato chips without absorbing the fat or calories. On paper, it sounded like a breakthrough in snack food technology. But Olestra came with a major downside. The human body couldn't digest it. While that was the entire point from a calorie standpoint, it also meant the compound could cause unpleasant gastrointestinal effects. Soon after launch, Consumer Reports described cramping, bloating, and what the FDA famously labeled anal leakage, a side effect that became infamous in late-night comedy segments and news stories alike. Canada and the European Union never approved Olestra for use in food products, citing both the potential digestive issues and concerns that it could block the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. In the US, it was eventually pulled from most products after sales tanked, but for a few years, Lay's Wow chips and fat-free Pringles became one of the most notorious diet food experiments in history. Coffee Mate Creamer. Coffee Mate has been a breakfast table staple in the US for decades, offering a creamy, sweet alternative to milk. But while it's marketed as a convenient coffee enhancer, the original formula relied heavily on partially hydrogenated oils, a major source of artificial trans fats. Trans fats have long been linked to increased risks of heart disease, stroke, and other cardiovascular issues. Because of this, several European countries moved to ban products containing them outright, which meant Coffee Mate in its original US form was not allowed on store shelves. In the EU, the legal limit for industrial trans fats is so low that the original Coffee Mate recipe wouldn't even come close to passing regulation. Nestle has since reformulated many versions to comply with newer US restrictions. Domino's Cheese Pizza. Domino's is one of the most recognizable pizza chains in the world, but the US version of its classic cheese pizza has faced bans in certain European countries. The issue wasn't the cheese or the sauce, it was the flour. For years, Domino's in the US used potassium bromate as a flour improver. This chemical helps dough rise higher, bakes more evenly, and creates that chewy texture. But health agencies in the EU flagged potassium bromate as a possible carcinogen, with studies linking it to kidney and thyroid tumors in animal testing. Because of those concerns, many European nations outlawed its use in food entirely. That meant Domino's either had to change its recipe for those markets or not sell the US-style pizza there at all. Twinkies. Twinkies are one of the most iconic American snack cakes. Golden sponge cake with a sweet cream filling that's been around since the 1930s. But in some countries, including Norway and Austria, The classic US recipe was outright banned. The problem wasn't the cake itself, but the additives inside. Original Twinkies contained artificial colorings like yellow 5 and preservatives such as BHT, both of which are restricted or banned in parts of Europe. Hostess could have reformulated the snack to meet those countries' standards, but Twinkies were never a major international product. So rather than change the recipe for specific markets, the company simply didn't sell them there, leaving Twinkies as a purely American indulgence for decades. Peach Ring Gummies. Peach Ring Gummies are a popular chewy candy in the US, known for their bright orange and yellow sugar-coated look and strong artificial peach flavor. But in the European Union, many versions of these candies can't be sold if they contain certain synthetic dyes like red 40 and yellow 5. Both dyes have been linked to hyperactivity and behavioral concerns in children, prompting stricter EU food regulations that require warning labels or outright bans on products containing them. Instead of altering recipes to remove the dyes, many candy makers simply avoid selling these versions in Europe altogether. Milk with RBGH hormones. In the US, some dairy farmers inject their cows with synthetic hormones like RBGH, recombinant bovine growth hormone, or RBST, to boost milk production. While it increases output, it also raises levels of another hormone called IGF-1 in the milk. And that's where other countries drew the line. The European Union, Canada, Japan, and Australia all banned the practice over health concerns for both the cows and the consumers. Studies linked the hormones to higher rates of udder infections in cattle, which meant more antibiotic use, and some scientists worried about potential links between IGF-1 and certain cancers in humans. Because of those risks, these countries chose to keep their dairy hormone free. Yoplait Light Yogurt. When Yoplait Light Yogurt first hit US shelves, it was marketed as a guilt-free way to enjoy a creamy dessert without all the sugar. The secret? Aspartame, an artificial sweetener that's been a lightning rod of controversy for decades. While the FDA approved aspartame for use in American foods, some European countries, especially in the earlier years of its adoption, imposed strict limits or outright bans on products containing it due to concerns over potential links to headaches, allergic reactions, and other health risks. Over time, even in the US, shifting consumer attitudes toward artificial sweeteners pushed the brand to update its recipes to rely less on aspartame and more on alternatives like sucralose or natural sweeteners. M&Ms. The colorful candy-coated chocolates that have been an American staple for decades actually had a rocky reception overseas, and not because of the taste. The original US version of M&Ms used artificial dyes like red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, which have long been under scrutiny in Europe. This forced Mars, the company behind M&Ms, to reformulate their recipes for the European market, swapping synthetic dyes for natural colorings like beet juice, paprika extract, and spirulina. The result? M&Ms in Europe look and taste just a bit different than the ones in the US, and some candy fans swear the overseas version is better. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.